Welcome to this introduction to Slate in Unreal Engine 5.6. My name is Greg and it is October 22nd, 2025, and we've put together this tutorial to introduce you to Slate. So I'm really excited about doing this tutorial. Before we begin, I just want to give a little bit of disclaimer about this tutorial. Although this is an introduction to Slate, this is considered an advanced topic because it assumes you have experience coding in C++, understand essentially beyond the basics of Unreal Engine, and have Visual Studio 2022 installed and up and running on your computer. So although this tutorial is going to be step by step and a beginner might be able to get through it, we are assuming that you understand these things. So we won't be giving too much backstory on those elements. So just throwing that out there. The next thing is, what are our goals for this tutorial? By the end of this tutorial, we want you to be able to define what Slate is. We want you to understand why you would want to learn it and use it. We're going to be teaching you how to create a basic 3-button menu system. And then along the way, as we're going step by step, there's several key concepts related to using Slate that we'll be touching upon. And ultimately, the last goal is just to get you comfortable with using Slate and C++. The truth is it can be a little intimidating and it can seem a little cryptic, especially when we get into some lines of code. You'll see what I mean. It can get kind of unwieldy, it can seem like. This now leads us into kind of our first question is, what is Slate? You can Google this. That's exactly what I did. So, and it actually appears to go straight to the Epic Games website. And it says Slate is Unreal Engine's foundational custom C++ user interface framework used to build both the engine's editor and in-game interfaces. And it says it uses a declarative syntax, which I understand that to mean that a declarative syntax is more focused on outcomes or results and not so much on giving you step-by-step sequenced instruction. It says here for in-game unit interfaces, but the truth is the UMG, the Unreal Motion Graphics inside of Unreal Engine, is perfectly fine for in-game interfaces. So you can use Slate for that, but you can also use the UMG. As it says down here on the bottom, I didn't read the whole thing, but it says the UMG is actually built on top of Slate, and that's going to tie into something we're going to talk about in just a second here, which is kind of our next question is, why learn and use Slate in the first place? If you're creating a UI system for some reason that's, I don't know if you want to say UI intensive, then and you need higher performance because you got so much going on, then you might want to consider using Slate because it's directly coded in C++, closer to the engine, heart of the engine. So it'll be higher performance if you have that situation. The other reason would be that you need a feature or something that's not available in the UMG. So you could use Slate to create something new, something different, a combination of things. So that's another reason why. But I think honestly, one of the most important reasons is that it really helps you gain a deeper understanding of the Unreal Motion Graphics. So I'm fairly familiar with the Unreal Motion Graphics, but there's a lot of things I see sometimes that I don't really understand what they are. But the more I understand about Slate, the more then I understand what that's about. So it's really looking under the hood. My sister, for example, she doesn't know too much about cars, and she just says, I put it in D and it goes. That's kind of UMG. But Slate is showing you what actually happens, in the transmission. Okay, and then the last thing is you can impress people at the next Unreal Fest with your knowledge of Slate. The last thing that I want to touch on before you start diving into this is that I wanted to talk about why I'm doing this tutorial. And the truth is that I couldn't find that many tutorials about Slate, and of the ones that I found, some of them were missing steps and some of them were a little outdated and some of them just were too cryptic and I just got lost. So I wanted to put together a tutorial that went step by step and kind of brings you current so that you can jump in and start using Slate to create your own menu system. So that ties into this last slide I'm going to show you is kind of what the game plan is. So the game plan is we're going to be doing a step-by-step process of creating a 3-button menu system in Unreal Engine using Slate. And keep in mind that this tutorial is about Slate and not so much about Unreal Engine itself. Toward the end, I'm going to be using a feature that's deprecated, but that can be resolved. I'm just talking about Slate, so I'm not going to get off on tangents about Unreal Engine and changes and updates that have been made to it. But the plan is to go through the entire process one step at a time so you can see how to put together a basic menu system. And after we are done, the goal is you should be able to figure out how to keep building UIs from here. You should have the basic knowledge to how to add a widget and remove a widget, how to make the button do something and all that. So In the next section, then we're going to go jump into Unreal Engine and get going on this. So I will see you there. Okay, welcome back, and we're ready to get started. The first thing we're going to do is create an Unreal project in C++. So you just come up to Games, and I'm going to do this in the third person. This is very important to make sure it's a C++ project. Give it a name. I'm going to call this my Slate project. I've done this before, so I'm going to call this 2, and we'll go create. And it's just going to take a minute for this to do everything that it needs to do. It's going to compile some C++ code, and then it's going to open Visual Studio. And so on your system, depending on your system, this can take several minutes, up to several minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and I'll come back as soon as it's done. Okay, at this point, it has compiled the Unreal Engine project, and it's open Visual Studio, and this configuration integration will come up, and I'm just going to close that for now. And you'll see this is our project folder over here on the right side. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to jump back into Unreal Engine, because the first thing I want to do is create 3 classes that we're going to use for our menu system. If I'm here on the content folder, I can create the classes here or here, but I'm just going to stay on the content folder, come up here to Tools, and go New C++ class. And the first thing I want to create is a HUD class. And you can think of the HUD class as kind of the brain of the manager of all the widgets. It's supposed to be where you put all the logic and everything for your widgets inside your HUD. So we'll just go next, select it and go next. And I'm just going to call this menu HUD. And we'll go create class. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a C++ file with that name and a header file. Now I have live coding enabled. I don't have to do any compiling in Visual Studio with live coding on. Green is good, which means everything went through. Hopefully it will do the same for you when you go to do this. So I'm going to close that window. You'll notice if I come down here to C++ classes, now we have the Slate, My Slate Project 2. And if I open it up, you'll see we had 3 classes that were already built for us. And then we have a menu head. Now we have a player controller already in here, but we're going to create another one for our purposes. And so what we do in this folder is we just need to right click and go New C++ class, and I can search for the player controller. Select it, go next, and I'm going to call this menu player controller. And we'll go ahead and create the class for that. And it's going to go through the same live coding process that it just went through. Hopefully we'll see some green here. Not money, but success in doing what we're wanting to do here. Now, I want to show you something that's really interesting. You'll notice that we got the classes created in here, right? So we created the menu HUD, and then we created our player controller. Now, if I right click and go New C++ class, I can also create a widget. So we're going to come down here to Slate Widget and go Next. Now, before I do that, notice that it says S compound widget. And notice what it says here. A custom Slate widget deriving from the S compound widget. The S compound widget is the base from which all non-primitive widgets should be made. So basically, you need it as the parent class. And also notice what happens after we go to create this. I'll go next, and I'm going to call this main menu widget. So we'll go main menu widget, and we'll go create class. It's going to do the same thing, but notice one little difference here. It's going through live coding. It's all successful. Green is good. I'm going to close this. And notice that it didn't create anything here. One thing to note about widgets is they are not UObjects, and they don't get registered for garbage collection. So we have to do things a little bit differently. But notice you don't see it here, right? Okay, so with that done, let's jump over into Visual Studio and get started. When you come back in, you'll notice you'll get this message to reload all. So just go reload all, and then everything's synced up. So the first thing we're going to do here is we need to add some dependencies, some modules. So we're going to come over to our project, click on that chevron there, come down to our source file, click on this little bit of a rabbit hole here, and we're looking for this build CS file. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. It comes up here. They've already done the code for us. All we need to do is put in the name of the modules. And notice where we are, we're in the build CS file. The first one is just parentheses, and you type in Slate then you do comma, parentheses, and Slate core. And if we don't do this, it won't work. It's something that we need. We don't have to come back into this file, so save all. Get in the habit of saving early and often. And then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the S main menu widget here, header file here. And we need to add a couple more header files in here as well. So modules in here. So we're going to go Control C and copy this. And I'm just going to go Control V. And the first one is called Slate Basics. I can copy this line of code. I'm hitting Shift and End. Control C, drop down with my arrow key. Control V. And this one is called Slate Extras. Again, we need these files. It won't work if we don't have them. .h. If it links up, you'll see the red squiggly line disappear. So that takes care of those header files that we need to do. Now you'll see down here, you'll see where our S compound widget is that we're inheriting from, right? So what we're going to do is just select this construct, click on it, left click on it, right click, and if we go quick actions refactorings, click there. We can go create declaration definition, and it's going to pop us over here into the CPP file. That's a nice handy way of getting around. And you'll see here is where we build our widget. This is essentially where we populate the widget, build the widget. You notice these lines are commented. We want this code, so we'll just go ahead and delete that. We don't need this comment anymore. So everything gets placed into a child slot. So it's built. We're going to start working on actually creating our widget. But before we do, there's going to be a couple variables that we're going to use. So the first one I'll put in is con for constant, and this is going to be f margin, and I'll call this content padding equals f margin. It's camelback parentheses. You can play with different values, but I'm just going to put 700 point f and 250 point f, and a semicolon goes at the end of that, and then come down one more. We're going to add another one, and now we're going to add another one, constant, and this is going to be f text, and this is going to be our title text equals f text double colons from string, and the title, I'm just putting something simple, just Slate. It's just going to say Slate, and we'll close that up here and semicolon. So those are just two variables that we're going to use downstairs here. Now in our child slot section, tabbing on here doesn't always work the greatest, so that's something you have to kind of finagle with. But anytime we make a widget, put a capital S in front of it. But this S new is the same as another one called S assign new, but this doesn't store a variable. So we're just going to go S new, and we're going to go S overlay. And if you're familiar with the UMG, the overlay is just it's a panel that allows you to stack objects on top of each other, elements on top of each other. So once we do that, we hit enter, and then we're going to put a plus sign. We're going to go S overlay again, and it's got to go into a slot. So we put it in a slot, parentheses, go to the end, hit enter again. And so we go H align. So this is going to fill the screen with our background, which is pretty cool when you see it. You'll see it here toward the end. So H align, well, you'll see it in just a minute actually, depending on how fast this goes. So, because we are doing this line by line. We have H line, so I can actually just copy this and hit Control V, because the other one is V align, vertical. So we just go V. Okay, and those are our parameters. Now we're going to put an image inside of this overlay. So we're going to hit the brackets, well, not the curly braces, the brackets. So let me tab in a little on that. We'll hit the brackets, enter, and S new again. And we're going to put an S image in there. Attribute we're going to use for this is going to be color and opacity. So we'll get dot, color, and oops, it's right there, so I can hit tab. And we're going to use, you can make it any color you want, but I'm just going to go F color, double colons, and it'll make it blue. And that takes care of basically our background. I'm going to jump down here and we're going to keep adding a little bit more. So I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to add another overlay slot. So I'm just going to come up here and grab this. So you'll find, I think, if you do a lot of copying and pasting, you can save a lot of time manually typing every single thing. S overlays, another slot. And this one we're going to use the same code here. So we'll pop this in down here, hit Control V, and it's going to be aligned. And here's where we can use our padding now that we created up above. So I can hit dot padding, and it's our content padding. Like that. Hit enter one more time. Then we're going to hit the brackets again, hit one more time. And we're going to put a vertical box in, and we're going to put some text inside of our vertical box. So we go S new again, parentheses, S vertical box, enter. Maybe I'll backspace on that, hit plus, and S vertical box. And again, this is for the slot, double colons, slot, parentheses. And then we come down, enter one more time, hit the brackets one more time, and you'll get the hang of this the more and more you do it. And here we're just going to put a text block inside of that vertical box. So we're going to go S new, parentheses, S text block. But you're going to see, because we don't have any styling on here, the font is going to be very, very small. But we'll fix that later. And here we just go dot text, and we'll put in our title text that we entered above. So that's our whole widget right there. You'll see that we're going to have a background here. And then we're going to have another overlay with a vertical box in it and some title text. And that's all that we have for here. You know, I'm thinking that since we've got the UI, the basics of it really created here, let's just go ahead and pause and take a little break, and then we'll come back and keep going from there. So I think we've been going about 10 minutes. So let's come back in just a little bit, take a break, and we'll keep going. Okay, welcome back. And in this section, this is where we left off. What we're going to do is we're going to finish up the rest of the code so that we'll be able to add the widget to our viewport and see it. And what we're going to see is just what we have in front of us right now. We're going to see a background with some text, but we're barely going to be able to see the text because there's no style on here yet. The first thing I'm going to do is go into the main menu widget header here. This is where we can pass in data or references to other classes. And here we are simply passing in a reference to our HUD class because we want to be able to communicate with it. And if we don't do this, we won't have any way of communicating with the outside world, so to speak. So that's all this is for. We can use arguments to pass in data. We just need 2 lines of code to do this. The first one is a Slate argument. So we go Slate underscore argument, and then parentheses, and then we're going to go T weak object pointer. I see it right there. So I'll hit tab so I don't have to spell the whole thing out. I'm going to go like this, and then we're going to type in class A menu HUD, close that up, and then we need a comma. And the name of the reference is going to be called owning HUD. So we're going to see that again. Then we can jump down here to the bottom. We haven't actually created the variable that stores the pointer for our HUD. So that's what we're going to do right here, is create a variable for it, object pointer. And the same kind of code we just wrote up above. Actually, I could have just probably copied that. Close that up. No comma, and then just owning HUD, semicolon. And all this is doing is creating a reference that's called owning HUD so that we can communicate with our HUD class that we created. And that's it. That's all we need to do there. Now, next, what we want to do is go into our game mode here that was already pre-built for us. And we want to go into the CPP file here. And all we want to do here is add our player controller and HUD class to the game mode. This game mode is the one that should be operative when we go into Unreal Engine, but it doesn't have any connection to our classes that we've created, to our player controller class or our HUD class. So we want to make that connection here. So what we're going to do is just type a little bit of code here. It's player controller class, and that's going to equal the one that we created, a menu player controller, double colons there, and it's a static class, and then parentheses, and we just close this up with that. Now we're getting an error because this file can't see it. So we're going to have to add the headers. So I'll add that in just a minute. So we go HUD class equals, and this is a menu HUD, double colons. And again, it's a static class, parentheses, and close it up. And we're getting an error for the same reason. So we just kind of come up here. We're going to type in include, bring in those headers. So we're going to bring in the menu HUD.h. It's right there. And then we'll do another include. Everything has to be able to see each other. And then this is our menu player controller there. And those errors go away. And that's all we need to do here. The next thing that we need to do is go into our menu HUD header file here. And here what we're going to do is we're going to store a pointer to the menu or UI itself and to the container for the menu or menu widget itself. So we're going to use the container to actually hold the widget. And we're actually going to use the widget container to remove and add our widget to the screen. So that's what we're doing right here. And this is going to be in a protected section here like that. We're just going to go T shared PTR, and our class here is our S main menu widget. Close that up, no comma, and we're going to call this menu widget, semicolon. And then we're going to just do the same thing again. In fact, I'm just going to copy this code. So I have to redo it and just change the names here. So this is actually going to be our S widget, and this is going to be called our menu widget container. And the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to create a function that starts the process of adding the menu to the viewport. So to do that, we're just going to type in virtual void begin play, parentheses, override, and semicolon. And that's all we need to do here. Now we're getting a squiggly line because we haven't created the function yet. So all we need to do for that is simply click on this, highlight this, right click, and go create refactoring, and it's going to take us to our menu HUD CPP. It's going to fill in a little bit of code for us. So there we go right there. And now this is where earlier I had talked about things can get unwieldy and kind of intimidating. And this is probably one of the longer, more intimidating lines of code that we have to write. Before we get started with actually doing all that, there are some header files we need to add. So I'm going to go include, and we're going to go add our double quotations. We're going to go S main menu widget right there. Tab is definitely your friend in this program. And then we're going to go quotations there, widgets / S weak widget. There it is right there. Tab, you hit tab to do that. And then include quotations. And we need a connection to our engine module here, engine.h. We're going to jump in here and now just build the body of our begin play function. And this is the last thing we need to do before we can test to see if this actually works. And if this works, then we know within, how long did this take? Maybe 25 minutes. We know sort of the basics of how we can create a background, some text, and put it onto the screen. Super, not that, not is actor beginning play, begin play. And I close that with the semicolon. And we're going to use an if statement here. Basically, if we have our engine and our game viewport, then we want to add our widget. So we're just going to say if, and that's GE engine and GE engine arrow operator game viewport. And then here, if that's true, we have that, then we're going to put in the curly braces. And this is the part that's a little weird. We go to our menu widget that we just created, and that's going to equal S new parentheses S main menu widget. Close that up. It's closed up. And then it's dot to our owning HUD. And we're referencing ourselves. So it's this to self-reference. And then this is a little bit longer line of code. We're going to go GE engine, arrow operator, game viewport, arrow operator again. And this is to add our viewport, actually add the viewport widget content right there. So that's already built in for us. And here's where we're going to use S assign new. Now remember, we have S new, and the difference between S new and S assign new is S assign new holds can store a variable. Now inside of this parentheses, we're going to create another parentheses because it requires some parameters and it wants to know what it's going to be storing. So we're going to store the widget container and it's going to be a weak widget. We're already closed up there. There's a operator we can use called possibly null content. We're going to go here and we're going to go menu widget and to shared ref, and that's a call to. I should be able to close this up with a semicolon. And I don't see any red squiggly lines, so it looks like we got through that. So there we go. This is the code that we use to add a widget to the viewport, our widget container that contains a widget menu in it. So here we go. And we look like we're good to go. So now it's a moment of truth. I'm going to jump into Unreal Engine here. We're going to hit live coding, this button way down here on the bottom, and see if we get any errors. Okay, and it's green, so we didn't get any errors, which is fantastic. What this means is that when I hit play, actually let me go into full screen mode here. So I'm going to hit F11, and if I hit Alt plus P, what we should see is a blue screen and small letters that say Slate. Let's see if that's what we see. And look, that's what we see. You see those little tiny letters that says Slate. And that's because we don't have any styling. But what this tells us is that our system is basically working. We can use C++ and Slate to create a background and some text and now add it to our screen automatically by connecting the classes that we created to the game mode class that came with the third-person template. I'm going to stop here, and in the next section, we're going to dig in a little deeper and start adding some buttons. So I will see you in the next section. All right, we're back and we're going to pick up where we left off, and we are going to finish up building up our menu system with our 3 buttons and some of the functions. And the first thing we're going to do is we need to add some header files, quite a few of them actually. So we're going to go hashtag include quotations. I don't know why I say double quotations. I should just say quotations because that's kind of redundant. So I don't know why I was saying double quotations. And here we do need the core minimal here because there's an asset in there that we need connection to, and we won't get it if we don't have the core minimal. And then we go hashtag include, and we need our reference to our menu head .h. It's right there. And then we need our game frame network. So include quotations, not double quotations, and that's a game framework, and it's going to be our player controller actually, and that's all the header files that we need. Moving on down, we talked earlier, we created our reference to our variable for our owning head, and now to get it, actually we can pass it through what's called the inargs. So we're going to go owning HUD is assigned to, essentially it's assigned to inargs dot underscore owning HUD right there, semicolon. The code reads, it works its way from the top down. So order is important. Sometimes when you're creating functions, if you put the function call before the function out of order, it won't be recognized. So always remember that the code goes top down. So what we want to do here is now add some more variables. So what I'm going to do is put enter right here, and then we're going to add some button padding. So we're going to go constant F margin, but we're going to call this button padding is assigned to F margin parentheses 2 dot F semicolon. And like I said, you can play around with these variables. I just adjusted them to where I thought they looked halfway decent. And here we're just going to add some more text variables. So I'm going to shift in and copy this, Control C, and we'll just go Control V, Control V, Control, and enter, and go Control V. And these are just different names to get you familiar with everything. So this is going to be for our start text. So we'll call this start text. This is going to be called quit text. And this is going to be called log text. And then we'll just change the actual text that's going to be on the buttons here. So this one's going to say start, this one's going to say quit, and this one's going to say print log. In Slate, there's something called styles the parameter that can feed it is an F Slate font info. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go F Slate font info. And I'm just going to call this B style for button style. You can call it anything you want to call it. Is sign equals F core style. And that's why we need the core minimal in there. And then we do double colons, get parentheses. There's a built-in font style that we can take advantage of. So get font style, and it's called embossed text. So that's what we're going to do. Embossed. There's other ways to set this up, but this is just kind of a quick and easy way to just get started. And here's where we can change our size of our font. Do you remember when we did the blue screen with the small font? Here's what's going to allow us to change that. So we're going to go to B style here and go dot size. And you can just make it any size you want, but I'm going to make it 60 F semicolon. And that takes care of that. Now all we have to do, now that we've done all this kind of groundwork, we can finish building out our menu system with the buttons. But before we do that, let's go ahead and modify what we already have with our text here on our title text. So I'm going to hit Enter, backspace, period, font, and now I can go B style, and it recognizes that. And go backspace again. And we can also do justification where we can put it, center it. So we go justification, parentheses, E, text, justify, double colons, center. And that's all we have to do for that. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and work on creating our buttons. And I'm just going to show you a little gotcha here. We have to be careful about it. So you see this bracket right here. We want to stay inside of this bracket on top of it. Otherwise, we're going to get into some trouble. So be mindful of where you are. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a slot within our vertical box, because we're inside a vertical box right now. And it may not seem like we are, but we are. And I'm going to hit plus S vertical box and 2 colons slot. Oops, that needs to be camelbacked. Vertical box, slot, parentheses, and hit enter, and I can backspace and go dot, and here we can use our padding that we had. Padding, button padding, like that. Okay, and then what we're going to do is hit enter and hit the, oops, I gotta get my spelling right here. Hit enter. And then we'll hit the brackets again. And here we're going to put in S new button. And inside the button, we're going to put some text. So we come down one more, hit enter, and hit the brackets again. And S new button should go away, but it's looking for something right inside of it. So we're going to go S new. And we're going to go S text block. Now, why am I getting an error here? Oh, because it's not S button. That's right. So it's very particular. Now here, for these operators, these values that we want to put under here, I'm just going to tab in like that, and I can actually just copy these. So I'm going to go Control C, come down here, Control V, and let me just line these all up. That's why I say there's some finagling to do. And this isn't going to be our title text, this is going to be our start text. But we're going to keep the same other styling there. So once we've built this one button, and again, be mindful of where you are bracket-wise, right? So what we can do is copy this right here. That's right. That's right. And we can go Control C, come down here, go Control V, hit enter, go Control V, and just like that, we've created our 3 buttons. And this is pretty much finishing our actual UI. So here under Start Text, we're going to change this to Quit Text. And down here, this is going to be log text. And we're going to keep everything else the same. And you can put comments in here if you want to add more clarity, but I think this is such a small UI. I think it's pretty clear what's kind of what here. But you can see it's very readable, and it's very nested and indented. I don't see any errors, and that's fantastic. So this basically completes the actual UI formatting. Now we're going to add some functions since we have our buttons. So we're going to go to the main menu widget header here, and under this void construct right here, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to go F reply, and we're going to go on play clicked parentheses constant and semicolon, and then I'm going to copy this whole thing here. Oh, it's capital R there, F capital R, and then I'm going to copy this whole thing here. Oops, I don't know what happened there, it disappeared. Go to the end, hit enter, Control V, Control V. So, and we can change this to on play clicked, on quit clicked, and on log clicked. And we're getting errors because there's no actual function created. So what I'm going to do is select this, right click, quick actions and refactorings, go into our main widget. It's going to build that up for us right there. So I'm just going to go back to here and select the on quit clicked, right click, quick actions and refactoring. There's that one. And this really is a time saver here. This really saves some time. Quick actions clicked, and there's our three functions, the shells of them essentially. Next, what we're going to do is add bindings for these buttons. So they have to be bound to the function. So what we do is we come up here to where it says S new button right here. There's our three buttons right here. I'm just going to hit enter, backspace, and we're going to go dot on clicked, and we'll hit a parentheses, and it's going to be this. It's the, and then it's going to be the ampersand S main menu widget double colon and on play clicked right there. That's it. And now here I'm just going to copy this line of code, Control C, and we'll just add it here too. Backspace, paste it. I guess I have backspace now. And this is going to be not on play clicked, but on quit clicked. And down here, we're going to add it down here as well. Control V. I can go to the front here, backspace, and this is going to be on log clicked. And this binds the functions to the actual event, button event. Okay, so you'll see down here on our functions that we're getting an error, and that's because we need to put that this has been handled. So all we need to do to fix that is just put in double colons and go handled. There's other responses you can put, and you put the parentheses after that. And then what we can do is actually just copy this little section there, Control C, and then just pop it in here. Get rid of those parentheses after F reply. Control V, and that gets rid of it. And all we're going to do is add functionality to our quit button. So to do that, what we're going to do is come up here to our quit function here on quit clicked, and get right on top of that parentheses there, hit enter. And what we're going to do is we're going to go if owning HUD, if parentheses, if owning HUD is valid, like that, and close it up with owning HUD. Oh, it's a call, so we need to put parentheses in there. If owning HUD is valid, and then we hit our curly braces, and there's another condition. We're going to go if we have our player controller, So we're going to go parentheses, a player controller, right there, and asterisk, and we're going to go is assigned owning HUD, arrow operator, player owner. And if those two things are true, we'll go curly braces, and we're going to just do a console command. So we're going to call the player controller console command and parentheses, and it's just going to say quit. And while we're here and doing this, let me see here. Did I make a mistake? If player controller, oh, I didn't put the PC there. I'm sorry. PC. If player controller, yeah, then go ahead and issue the console command. And on our log clicked event, this is just something just to show you that this works. We'll just put in a log message here. Go UE underscore log parentheses log temp comma display comma tex text, and then quotations, and we'll just put log button has been pressed, and that's all we have to do there. And I don't see any errors, so that's great. So we have two functions. One's going to print out a log message, and the other is going to quit the game. So at this point, let's test this and see if this works. So let's jump back into Unreal Engine real fast, and let's hit live coding and see if we see any green. This part always kind of makes me nervous, but when I see certain things, I know that the compile is going to go through. Now we got a failed here. It's not liking something that we did. Let's see, what doesn't it like? I don't see any errors. Oh, I guess I didn't save everything. So that's why we need to save early and often. Sorry about that. So let's go ahead and recompile. It should go through this time. That's why I was talking about the brackets, because I had been playing around with it and I was getting an error. So that's why I was saying, now it looks like it went through. Okay, so we're good. So what should happen now, let me go ahead and open the output log here. Hit stop, and I'll hit play, and you'll see there is our menu system. Now we don't have any functionality for the start yet, but if I go quit, it quits the game. I come back and hit play, and I go print log, and you'll see down there in the lower left, the print log is working. So this didn't go 100% smoothly, but that's life in the real world, so I don't want to edit out every mistake because not everything goes perfectly. But you do have to watch what you're doing because it is easy to make a mistake. It can be something very simple like you just put something outside of a bracket and you didn't realize it. So that wraps up this section. In the next section, we're just going to add functionality to the start button, and that should be close to wrapping this whole thing up. So I will see you in that section. So in this last section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding some functionality so that we can control the display of the menu itself. So it's going to be that if you press a button like X, then it brings the menu system back. And when you hit start, the menu system goes away. So that's typically how it would work. And that's typically how we would set it up with blueprints in UMG as well. So we're just going to do it now using Slate and C++. So to get started with this, we need to create two functions, a show and a remove menu function. And remember, these are going to go in the HUD because it is the HUD that is supposed to control the logic and display of the widgets themselves. So let's pop in over here, and we just need to write 2 lines of code. This is actually going to just be public. So we'll hit public, public colon. Okay, there we go. Public, and it is going to be void show menu parentheses semicolon, and then we're going to do the same thing, void remove menu parentheses semicolon, and that's all we need to do. This can seem like it gets a little convoluted because we are jumping around quite a bit here. But next we're going to go into the menu CPP. You notice we're getting an error here. If I were to right click here and create refactorings, notice it doesn't want to take me to here. So what I'm going to do is I could go there and try to do it, but I think I'm just going to go into here and just rewrite the whole thing like I normally would. Okay, so up here on the top, we just need to add a couple modules. So we're going to go hashtag include quotations, and this is going to be our game framework HUD / HUD.h. And then we're going to also add include quotations game framework / player controller.h. Now we're going to have to modify this to some extent. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to copy this one little line of code here. Go Control C, drop down here, go Control V, and it's not going to be begin play. This is going to be the show menu. So we'll go show menu here. We're basically writing our functions, show, and then we just need some curly braces here, and that's kind of the shell there. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to move some things around. So leave this here, but we're going to pull this out here, this code here, and go Control X, and we're going to put it here in our show menu, Control V. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to call it from here. So here we'll just go show menu and semicolon there. And we just want to add a little bit of logic here. And this is typically what we do, right, when we have a UI, right? We want to limit the player's ability to move the mouse and interact with the game. So we typically go to UI mode only when they're in the user interface, and then we turn on the mouse. And then when they go into the game mode, we turn off the mouse and put input mode back to game. So we did the same thing here, but except we're just doing it in code. So here we're just going to add this if player owner, and we'll just put curly braces here, and we just go player owner. And this is the, like I said, about the under the hood part where you're really seeing how it all set up. And it's B for Boolean, and it's show mouse, it's right there, mouse cursor, and it's going to equal true when it set it to true, so it'll show the mouse. I'm going to just copy this little line here, Control C, let me get a little space, Control V, and we're going to do the same thing now, except now we're going to change the input mode. So we'll go set input mode, and it's going to be F input mode UI only, and that's a call we're making, and we put that there, right? We want to see the mouse, but we want them in UI mode only. So now we're going to write one more function. I'm going to kind of just copy this whole thing and go Control C and go Control V. And this isn't going to be show menu. This is going to be remove menu. We're just going to change some things up here. They're not all quite the same. So here, we're going to keep this initial line of code on the top. We're going to go to game viewport, but also we want to make sure that the main widget is there. So that's another condition. So we'll go and menu widget container right there dot is comma dot is valid. Okay, so if it's valid, if that's valid, then what we want to do, you see up there when we show we added it, here where it's a game viewport, it's the same thing, except we're going to remove it now. So we're just going to change it to remove viewport widget content, and here we are not assigning anything, so we just need the menu widget container, and we're going to get rid of all this stuff here, and it is to shared ref like that. And I think I have an extra marker there now. Okay, so that's going to remove our widget from this screen. And here we're just going to reverse this, right? We're going to set it to false. When the menu goes away, the mouse cursor goes away. And also down here, we're going to go to game only. So we'll just type in game only. And that's all we need to do for those functions, show and remove. And I think that's it. Let's go ahead and save. because you saw earlier how that created a compile problem. Next, we're going to go into the player controller header file. And you'll see in just a minute when we go to do all this, we need to set these in the game because they're player controllers that we're setting, right? And before we weren't using this player controller that we had created. So let's go into here. Under here, we just got to add a couple things here. So under generated body, we're going to go protected, and we're going to A menu our player controller, semicolon. And then we're going to go virtual void. This is all for our keyboard input that we're going to create. Set up input component. And I should mention that, of course, this is the old school way of doing it. It's deprecated, but sometimes I think it's good to kind of know how things used to be done. So, and then here we're just going to go void open menu and have that there like that. We should be able to create implementations of this. You notice how none of these appear. So if I click on this and right click create, it's going to pop us over here and it adds that. So we'll come over here and select this one, create that one, and then we're going to go back one more time. And this is such a handy function here. We then have our three functions that we can implement here. And so on this first one, we're going to go super double colons set up input component right there, parentheses, semicolon. And if we have it, the input component, then curly braces, we want to do something. And what do we want to do is just bind it. So we go input component, arrow operator, bind action, and it needs some parameters here, including the name, and it's open menu, bind action, comma. Oh, the other thing, I'm seeing I'm getting a little error here, but I want to go ahead and add on the header file, include our HUD up here. So we're going to put menu HUD.h. Okay, because I think it's going to give us an error if we don't. And then we're going to go IE underscore pressed, this self-reference, ampersand a menu player controller open menu. And this will create our binding action. And then a semicolon at the end of that. And that should be all we have to do to create that function to set up our input component. And then the last one down here, we're just going to go if a menu HUD asterisk menu HUD equals cast a menu HUD, close that up, parentheses, get HUD. And let's see, did I miss something on here? Cast, oh, there's no comma there. There we go. Okay, and if that's true, we have that connection there, then we'll put in curly braces again, and here what we'll do is just menu, we'll call our menu HUD here. So we're just making a connection to our HUD so we can implement this call. And that should take care of that, although, I don't know why I'm still getting an error here. Let me save. Oh, it's silly. There's no semicolon here. Okay, that was my mistake. So we've got all that done. And so the next thing we're going to do is just go back to our main menu widget here and finish out the logic for our play button. Here we come up here, park right about there, hit enter, and we're going to go if parentheses owning HUD is valid, that's a call, parentheses then, what do we want to do? We want to go owning HUD, remove menu, and parentheses and semicolon. And that's all that we have to do. So it is a lot, and we are jumping around quite a bit. So let's see if we can get this to work now. So let's jump into Unreal Engine. Okay, so back in Unreal Engine, there's just a couple things that we need to do. And first we need to do a binding action. So we're going to come into Edit, project setting, and this is the old school way of doing it. Go to input, and we're going to access action mappings here, and we have to write in open menu exactly as we put it in our code. Click this little chevron here, click that little keyboard, and then we can just press any button on the keyboard, and I'm going to press X. So this binding will be recognized by our code, and it will open the menu up when I press X. The other thing that we need to do now, remember, if we review here, we've created two classes, right? We created a player controller class and a HUD class, right? So what we have to do is we have to change that here. So what we're going to do is come into here and go to default pawn. Then we're going to select our HUD, and if you don't do this, it won't work because we change these things, right? We have our own menu player controller, we have our own menu HUD, and we don't have really a third person, we have just a default pawn. So now if I hit play, let me go into F11 so you can see the whole thing, and I'll go Alt plus P, and there's our menu. Wow. Took a little bit of work, did it? But look what we created without using UMG. And this is all mostly in the code. And if I press start, you see we're in our game, and I have complete control to fly around and stuff like that. Now I noticed there was a slight change. I did something that I didn't show you to prove a point to you, but see the mouse cursor still there? Okay, I just wanted to show you. I left it in. I did that on purpose. I went back and changed that. So I just hit escape to quit the game. If I hit Alt P again and start the game, and I go to quit, it quits the game. Let me get out of F11 so you can maybe see a little better. So I'm going to hit play again. Quits. Right? And then if I open up here, the print log prints log, and starts the game, and I can move around, right? And if I hit X, it brings the menu back. So I'm going to go ahead and quit. And I'm just going to show you something real super quick. We're going to come in here, and you see where I hit change that to true, just to show you how we can change, influence things, and that it works. So I'm going to change it back to false. Save all. Go back into Unreal Editor, and let's just live code that. Let's recompile all that real fast. And then you'll notice this time that the cursor isn't there. So what this is showing you is that this all works as expected. It's all working as expected. We can add the menu widget. We can remove the menu widget. We can add buttons. We can make those buttons do things. We can live compile our code. Now, if I hit play and go start, you notice I'm in the game, but no mouse cursor. So we're linked up. Everything's linked up and working, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, I hope you appreciated this tutorial. We learned what Slate was, we learned when we might use it, and then we walked through the process on a step-by-step, somewhat maybe at times slow process. We made it through it though, and in the end we have a menu that works. So anyway, I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and get out there and start coding in C++ and Slate.